Okay, so there's a lot to go over in this video, but I would really appreciate it if you would stick all the way through it, because by the end of this video, you're going to know my take on all of the Bandai tweets, you're going to know my take on all of the news, you're going to understand why each of my predictions are the way that they are, you're going to know what I think we're going to get out of PAX South, Weekly Shonen Jump and V-Jump. You're gonna know pretty much everything. I just urge you to watch through the entirety of the video. This coming week is about to be kind of crazy. Between PAX South, Weekly Shonen Jump, V-Jump, the beta, there's gonna be so much Jump Force stuff. And whilst I'm also really worried about it, I'm very excited as well. I'm sure most of you know by now, Bandai EU's Twitter has been going pretty nuts. They've been quite active answering questions from the community about the game and the roster, and it's actually led me to changing some of my predictions a tiny bit. And again, we're going to get into that later on in the video. There's also another theory going around about whether there's going to be 22 additional characters on the roster. I'm not going to talk about that in this video because, quite frankly, I think the whole idea is pretty absurd. You can check out Griffin Station's video on the topic. It should either be out now or it should be out very, very soon. You can go subscribe to him. I'll leave a link in the description. He'll have a video covering it in its entirety, where the theory began and basically his takeaway from it. And my takeaway is about the same. But what I'm going to do here at the start is I'm going to go over the Bandai tweets. So let's start with this tweet about Suna. A very talented artist on Twitter asked Bandai what they thought of his art. Personally, I think it's pretty amazing, and he even tried to bait out Bandai to confirm that Suna's in the game. But instead, Bandai congratulated him on his talented drawing skills and said, sadly, we cannot confirm or dispel questions about characters before official announcements. My takeaway from this is that it means literally nothing. I don't think it gives you evidence to suggest that Suna is in the game or not. However, I do think Suna will be on that main roster. Moving on to the next tweet, someone went on to beg for more characters and asked if new characters would be from existing franchises already announced or new ones. Bandai's response was about what you would expect. Announcements are already scheduled, meaning that they can't say anything. There is quite a lot to reveal, and those will be from existing franchises and new ones. My takeaway from this thread is basically, duh. We were already pretty confident new franchises were on the way because of the absence of things like JoJo's. On top of that, we were also pretty confident that existing rosters would get additional characters because, of course, Naruto's sitting at 2 right now. I know a lot of people are going to jump on this tweet because Bandai said there is quite a lot to come, as if that somehow disproves the 12 character theory. As far as this tweet dispelling that theory, it's not good evidence. If you're one of those people who think that there's still 60 characters to come or something like that, remember that if 12 more were announced, the total roster would be, I think, around 47 or 46. That 12 additional characters would be slightly over 25% of the entire roster. That is a lot. Please don't get your hopes up for this main roster because I don't want people to be disappointed. Moving on to a slightly interesting tweet from Bandai, they were asked about additional game modes and Bandai just said stay tuned. I thought that was a really strange tweet because they didn't need to address that part of the tweet. I don't think we'd get anything crazy as far as game modes are concerned. I don't think we would get like a 2 versus 2 or anything like that from J-Stars, but I could see like a King of the Hill thing, kind of like what Smash Brothers has. Apart from that, I don't see any like gameplay changes for game modes. I guess we're gonna have to wait and see for that one. Bandai was later asked specifically about Naruto characters, to which they just said, yeah. It's not like Naruto characters at this point is surprising, but I thought it was interesting that they said very directly, yes, there are more Naruto characters coming. Very rare that we get a direct tweet like that. Bandai was asked about different times for the beta, which I won't go over because I've already done that in another video, and they were also asked about female characters and why certain characters have a lack of gameplay footage, like Killua. Bandai replied, more female characters, as in plural, are coming, but the roster will remain mostly male. Let's take a minute to talk about this before I talk about the second part. When I look at the remaining roster and I assume the 12 character limit, I can arrive at multiple female characters, mainly Sakura and Medaka, but that's just 2. Would 2 be enough to justify a tweet like this where you so publicly say that there's going to be additional female characters? Because people, I think, would be upset if it was just 2. It's really hard to read that tweet, but certainly additional female characters. And I'll talk about my prediction straight after this, but I want to go over the second part of this tweet, which is the Killua thing. Bandai replied to the question about Killua and why they're quote-unquote hiding him and they said, "We are not hiding anything, but some characters are not going to be shown to avoid spoiling the full game." Some people have taken this tweet to mean that some characters won't be announced before the release, meaning that we're going to have additional characters that we don't know about. But that is not what this tweet means. This tweet is specifically in response to Killua not being in the beta, a character who has already been announced. So what I took away from this tweet was that we won't see additional gameplay footage of characters we have already announced. People like Yugi Moto probably won't see a lot of gameplay footage. Characters like, who's another one? Aizen probably won't get a lot of gameplay footage. And there's a handful of other characters who we haven't seen gameplay footage of. I think this is their tweet to say, hey, we won't show off gameplay of everyone. You're going to have to play the game to get a feel for them. Okay, so finally we can talk about PAX South, Weekly Shonen Jump, and V-Jump, all of which happen next week. And the beta is happening next week. So there's just so much Jump Force stuff happening next week. I really am excited about it. But before we get our hopes up for PAX South, V-Jump, and Weekly Shonen Jump, I do want to say it's worth mentioning that there could be some overlap between these three things. Meaning that what is shown off at PAX South could just theoretically be the V-Jump and Weekly Shonen Jump characters, but in video format or something like that. I also don't expect to find out the entire remaining 12 characters throughout this week, although I do expect to know the entire Naruto roster. So, returning to my predictions. Assuming the two current theories right, the 12 characters remaining theory, and that each of the big three will receive 6 characters, I can't arrive at 3 additional female characters, at least not reasonably. So I'm going to update my prediction list from what it was before, and we'll go from there. So here are the characters I'm expecting to be in the game. Sakura, Kakashi, Madara, Gaara, Jotaro, Dio, Suna, and Koro Sensei. That's 8 characters, so there's 4 more additional slots. And I could see these 4 additional slots going in a couple different ways. So we're going to assume different things when we look at the remaining 4 characters. So if we assume Gintoki makes the cut, which I think would be pretty surprising at this point, in which case I think the remaining roster would look something like this. Gintoki, Kagura, Medaka, and Bakugo. I know a lot of people are going to be upset about the additional My Hero Academia character there, but this is a prediction list, not a wish list, I promise. And this is the one I'm going to get the most hate for, but I do actually think it's a possibility. To be fair, I don't think it's the most likely of all of these possibilities. I do, however, think it is a possibility, so I wanted to go over it. Assuming My Hero Academia gets additional representation, 3 characters in fact. Again, I don't think it's likely, but it is a prediction nonetheless. Bakugo, Uraraka, Medaka, and Old Man Joseph. I decided to include Old Man Joseph on this list because I do actually think he's more likely than people are giving him credit for, and this is one of the few ways that I see him making the cut. And finally, the one that I think I will get the most hate for out of all of this, which is funny because I'm imagining I'm going to get quite a lot of backlash for the other 2 predictions as well, but underneath the third assumption, I'm assuming that the big 3 will not receive 6 characters, they will receive 7, in which case I think the final 4 would look something like this. Nami, Hinata, insert any Dragon Ball character, to be honest. Let's call it Teen Gohan. I don't really care who you put here because I'm not a big Dragon Ball fan. I think Teen Gohan makes the most sense though because it would make Cell make sense, and it would be less weird to see someone like Teen Gohan interact with the version of Goku that we have, because Goku has kind of always looked the same, where it would actually be weird to have Boruto and Naruto on the same screen. I don't think it would be weird to have current day Goku and Teen Gohan on the same screen because again, they've always looked the same. So anyway, regardless, moving forward, and believe it or not, Nagisa I think could accompany Koro Sensei. This slot could easily also go to Bakugo instead of Nagisa, but either way, I think it's really interesting that Deku wasn't shown off at all during the story mode trailer, and I think the reason for that is that he's probably interacting throughout the story of the story mode. He's probably interacting with characters who have not been announced yet, and that's why they couldn't show footage of him. So for example, he could be interacting with Koro Sensei plus Nagisa, or Koro Sensei and Bakugo. It would be really interesting to see Koro Sensei kind of be like the teacher role for Bakugo and Deku throughout the story or something like that. Regardless, I think these are all the characters that are in the running for the final roster. I know people are going to ask about Hiei, people are going to ask about all these other characters. Believe me, I've thought about these other characters and I don't think they're going to make the cut. And remember, whenever I talk about all this stuff, it's a prediction list. It's not a wish list. My wish list would look very, very, very different. Like, for my own personal taste, if I got rid of all of my predictions, I didn't care about any of the rules besides the 12 character thing, this is what my genuine wish list would look like. You know, retrospectively looking at this wish list, I realize how much I like female characters. Look at the large percentage of female characters here. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? That's a pretty big percentage right there. I posted this wish list on Twitter and I had people ask me, I thought you want Nagisa in the game, or I thought you wanted all these characters in the game, and then I get like a list of characters who I previously said I want. And yeah, that's true. I do want a lot of characters, but if I had to limit myself to 12, these are the exact characters that if, again, there were no other rules, like for example, I've got Sarada here. Sarada would never make the cut before somebody like Boruto, right? Of course you need Boruto before you have Sarada. Shoto probably doesn't make the cut before Bakugo. Noelle probably doesn't make the cut before Yuno, but again, this is just purely a wish list. But everything else I said in this video, all these other characters, this is a prediction list. You know, I'm not trying to put any bias into this, and I know you see me use like a lot of popular franchises, things like JoJo's, things like Assassination Classroom, which is more modern than popular, but regardless. But you do see me occasionally use some niche things, like Medaka Box is certainly niche. And some people are confused about why I use some niche franchises and not some others, and it's usually because I've come to some conclusion on it. There's a few other characters like Saiki, who used to be on my prediction list, but I don't think he's going to make it anymore. I don't think any of these niche franchises, and I see a lot of people get upset about that because it's like, I thought this was meant to be this celebration of Weekly Shonen Jump. Why are all of these mainstream characters taking up this roster? And at the end of the day, it's because all form of entertainment, regardless of whatever you think of it, is a business. And even though this is a celebration of Weekly Shonen Jump, they don't have unlimited time. They don't have unlimited money to pump into the game. They need to see a return on investment in this game. So they can't have an 80 character roster that features franchises like Saiki. They have to put in characters who are going to draw other people in. For example, this is just anecdotal, but maybe it helps drive home my point with some of you. Naruto. We all know that Naruto is a big draw, right? A lot of people like Naruto. A friend of mine who I talk to on occasion, who I grew up with, who actually is the one who got me into Naruto initially, to this day, he plays Shinobi Striker. And I told him that what I do on YouTube now is I cover this whole Jump Force thing, and he was like, oh, what's Jump Force? And we talked about it for a little bit, and I showed him some of the characters in the game, and he's like, oh, that character's cool, that character's cool. Are there any Naruto characters? And I told him there were only 2, and he kind of chuckled a bit, and he was confused about why there was only 2 Naruto characters when Naruto is such a big thing. And he started talking about all these characters he wanted to see, and he started listing off Gaara, he started listing off Madara, he mentioned Itachi, and I don't think Itachi's making the list, but it's important to not only represent these big and popular franchises, but to also give them a pretty big share, the lion's share of that representation, because it's going to bring more people into this game. I know intuitively it might feel like that's kind of counterproductive. It might feel like, well, it's more effective to add in more franchises because you get more people interested, but that's not necessarily the case. If I'm a casual Naruto fan and I'm not a big anime fan, or I'm a casual Dragon Ball fan, or I'm a casual One Piece fan, and I hear about Jump Force and there's only 2 One Piece characters in it, or there's only 2 Naruto characters in it, or there's only 3 of one of those things, I'm going to be less interested because I know my favorite characters aren't coming to the game, and I know that there's only 2 or 3 slots on the roster dedicated to my franchise, and I know it sucks because it means we're probably not going to get things like Saiki. It probably means we're only going to get, 1 Reborn character. It probably means we're only getting 1 Assassination Classroom character. It probably means we're not getting Boruto, which hurts me because I like that series a lot, despite the hatred that it gets. But that's the downside of the fact that entertainment is a business, and it sucks, but I mean, that's the reality of the situation, and that's why my predictions are the way that they are. Okay, with all of that in mind, I want to thank you so much for watching this video. If you appreciate me putting all the hard work I do into these videos, leaving a like, I would be very thankful for it. It helps other people find the video. Subscribe to keep up to date with future content. My name has been Bilbsy, and I will absolutely see you in the next video.